The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Major repercussions from an investigation by the Jewish Channel sees a rabbi leave the largest rabbinical court in the country. Happy birthday to Israel. The secrets of the Mossad, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now on this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. A rabbi who served as a judge on the largest rabbinical court in the country has taken an indefinite leave of absence after an investigation by the Jewish Channel. Rabbi Michael Broyd is a prominent figure in religious and legal scholarship. He was reportedly on the short list of candidates to be Chief Rabbi of England, and he is a law professor at Emory University, a law school ranked 23rd in the country by U.S. News & World Report. But an investigation by the Jewish Channel revealed that Broyd is also the creator of a fake rabbinic identity that was used to submit letters to scholarly journals, tout Broyd's work, and join a rival rabbinic group to obtain access to its correspondence and argue as a legitimate member. Broyd initially denied these claims in a phone interview with the Jewish Channel, but admitted them in a letter of apology sent less than an hour after TJC published the story. The character created by Broyd was named Rabbi Herschel Goldwasser. The Goldwasser character wrote letters to such journals as Tradition and Conservative Judaism and engaged in other scholarly correspondence. A typical example of touting Broyd's work came in that Conservative Judaism letter, where the Goldwasser character called an article by Broyd, quote, the classical article in the area of parentage in Jewish law. The Goldwasser character joined an upstart rabbinic group, the International Rabbinic Fellowship, or IRF, that was launched in 2008 as a rival to the rabbinic group of which Broyd is a member and with which his rabbinical court is affiliated. The full investigation by the Jewish Channel was published at TJC's News Desk blog on Friday at noon. First thing Monday morning, the Rabbinical Council of America was announcing that Broyd was taking an indefinite leave of absence from both his position as a rabbinical court judge and from his membership in the rabbinical group, and calling Broyd's behavior, quote, deeply troubling. A statement from Emory University said Broyd's actions are, quote, concerning, and that the school is, quote, currently reviewing the matter and plan to issue a statement once our inquiry is complete. The Jewish Channel can now reveal that the Goldwasser character pretended to have rabbinic ordination from a prominent sage in order to join the IRF. The Jewish Channel obtained the membership form that he used to join the IRF, where he lists an address in Israel that seems not to exist, and declares that he received rabbinic ordination, or smicha, from the late Rabbi Yehuda Gershuni at Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael in 1957. You can read all of the Jewish Channel's initial investigation and keep apprised of updates to this story at the Jewish Channel's News Desk blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. The State of Israel is 65 years old. Celebrations were held around the globe for Yom Ha'atzmaut, and Meredith Gansman reports from one at the Israeli consulate.
It's Israel's 65th birthday, and like any good party, there's plenty of food and lots of guests. But this Yom Ha'atzmaut, or Israel Independence Day, is more than just honoring Israel. It's American leaders who are the guest of honor.
Members of Israel's diplomatic corps and colleagues, community leaders, dear friends of Israel. Chag Sameach.
On Tuesday night on Manhattan's Upper West Side, Israeli diplomats, local politicians, and over 1,000 guests gathered to wish Israel a very happy 65th birthday, which New York City Council Speaker and mayoral hopeful Christine Quinn said was a powerful political statement of New York's support of Israel.
So make no mistake, what you did tonight was brave and an act of solidarity for a process of peace across the world. And I want to thank you as a New Yorker for never losing the connection between New York and the State of Israel. We are linked together. I don't think we can say enough that New York is Israel and Israel is New York.
Israel's Minister of Culture and Sports reflected on Israel's progress since its creation in 1948.
Having no any natural resources, we just had to use our, genius in order to do something and gain something. And we knew that in order to stay alive, that's what we had to do.
This Yom HaAtzmaut celebration also honored tri-state area Mechalniks, the individuals who left their homes in America to help Israel during the War of Independence. Paul Kay accepted the award from the Israeli consulate.
That the creation of the State of Israel, a realization of 2,000 years, is a Jewish dream that we all had back in those days, the highlights of the people in history.
For local broadcaster David Price, hearing from the Mechalniks was very emotional.
I looked at members of the Machal, and I saw elderly men and women, some of whom couldn't even walk to the stage. And I flashed back to 1948, when they were kids. They had their whole lives in front of them to do anything they want. And apathy would have ensured that it would always be a possibility. But they weren't apathetic. They galvanized themselves, and they signed up for what was a seemingly impossible task. And without those people in that row, none of us would be here tonight.
To see more from the Israel at 65 Yom HaAtzmaut celebration, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. A major part of Israel's survival is rarely spoken about. Covert intelligence gathering and offensives are undertaken by the Mossad. A new book tackles the history of the secretive organization, and Christian Needon has an interview with the author.
Former Knesset member and author Michael bar-Zohar is known for giving his readers an inside view of Israel's decision-makers. He's the official biographer of President Shimon Peres, but his latest work of history sheds some light on the legendary Israeli intelligence agency, the Mossad, whose missions have made it feared and respected among both Israel's enemies and allies. Bar-Zohar and Israeli journalist Nassim Mishal boiled down 7 decades of the agency's triumphs and even a few failures into 400 pages for Mossad, the greatest missions of the Israeli Secret Service. In the midst of promoting the book in New York City, bar-Zohar stopped by TJC to talk about chronicling the Mossad.
Israel is a small country, and the people who do all these kind of dangerous, risky jobs are very few. And it's a kind of closed community. And if you are close to somebody in the community, and you can hear a lot of stories, but of course, everything has to go through censorship, because we are dealing here with matters of life and death.
But the Mossad has balanced risk with great reward for Israel's citizens. Its greatest asset is information, which led to the capture of Adolf Eichmann in Argentina in 1960. The Mossad also provided critical intelligence for operations like the IDF rescue of Israeli hostages at Entebbe Airport, an incident familiar to Jewish channel viewers who watched the film Operation Thunderbolt. But bar-Zohar says the portrayal of the Mossad's hunt for members of Black September in the Steven Spielberg film Munich left much to be desired.
That was a bad movie, and that was not a true movie. I wrote a book called Massacre in Munich before that, about what happened in Munich and what happened afterwards. First of all, the point of view of Spielberg was mistaken. It was because of his screenwriter, not because of him. He bought a book which was turned to be false, and then his screenwriter, they didn't like Israel very much, showed a different picture.
That picture, bar-Zohar says, was a Mossad whose members were driven by revenge.
The Mossad did not go to seek revenge. That was the movie. The movie was supposed even to be called Vengeance at the beginning. Then they changed the name.
To hear more from Michael bar-Zohar, co-author of Mossad, The Greatest Missions of the Israeli Secret Service, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Finally, a new documentary airing on HBO adds to the legacy of the Holocaust. Meredith Gansman has that story.
Gil told me that his friend Louis Levine had come to see him that day at Gil's law office. They had talked for hours about an idea to bring Jewish children out of Nazi Germany and into the United States.
1.5 million children perished in the Holocaust, but 50 children were saved because of one Jewish couple from Philadelphia. A new documentary appearing now on HBO entitled 50 Children, the rescue mission of Mr. and Mrs. Krause tells that story. And I'm joined today by the Krause's granddaughter, Liz Purley, and her husband and documentarian, Steve Pressman. Liz and Steve, thank you so much for joining me. In 1939, very few people in the U.S. knew what was going on in Europe before the Holocaust. So how did this all come about?
Well, in point of fact, people did know. As Paul Shapiro from the Holocaust Museum likes to say, my grandparents weren't CIA agents, they were reading the newspaper. So they did know that people were in peril. There was a fellow lodge member of Brit Shalom, Louis Levine, who came to my grandfather and said, we have 50 beds in an extra building out at Collegeville at a camp. Let's go get 50 kids. And I think he knew his audience. My grandfather was just the kind of person to take on that challenge.
What was the specifics of the mission?
My grandfather had figured out that there was a gap between visas issued and the actual number of people who were coming in on those visas. And he was going to go get 50 kids with that surplus from the gap. And so off he went to, initially without my grandmother, to Berlin, and was quickly redirected to Vienna.
What were some of the memories of these children leaving Vienna, leaving their parents, leaving everything they knew, and going with your grandparents to the U.S.?
One of the most poignant moments in the film comes from a woman, lovely woman, named Helga Milberg, who recounts in the film saying goodbye to her mother at the train station. And of course, these parents and children, they didn't know whether they would see their children or their parents again. There we were filming her, and suddenly she's back in Vienna in 1939, and knowing that, in retrospect, she would never see her mother again.
For more on 50 Children, the rescue mission of Mr. and Mrs. Krause, tune into the full broadcast version of The Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. That's all for this week from all of us here at the Jewish Channel. Be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.